What I've read about the concept of this luxury tax thing, and one thing we have to remind ourselves, by the way, the Premier League kind of governs itself in the sense that the clubs are voting on this, whether they want this. And what it reads as is that 17 of the 20 do actually want this. Is how the luxury tax would work is rather than points deductions, you pay a penalty, which to me suits Newcastle pretty good, suits City pretty good, suits Chelsea
City more than anyone, I think, are part of the conspiracy that people are thinking that this is coming in because City, with the amount of infringements they've had, with the amount of money that's gone missing, and
but this
they'd be relegated, arguably. Well, that's the claim.
Yeah, and this wouldn't.
So this saves them.
Maybe. I mean, look, there's 117 charges there. There's still enough that the thing that I find this mad. I've met people in the past who've got a lot of money, and you meet them and you look at their car, they've got a nice Range Rover and it's covered in parking tickets. Do you know why? Because they don't care about getting a ticket because they just pay the fine. That is how I think big clubs will behave if we introduce this luxury tax. Why do Newcastle care? If you pay £50 million for a player, that puts you over the £105 million limit and gets slapped with a £10 million fine. Cool. Who cares?
Cool.
Yeah. And for me, this 17 clubs thing, it's like turkeys singing for Christmas. It's like, what are you talking about? You compare.
Do you know why? Because as much as Man City have broken the rules horrendously, and Newcastle probably want to break the rules horrendously but haven't yet, a lot of other clubs that we are unaware of, like if before this came out, we wouldn't have thought Everton were breaking that many rules. Yeah. When you look at the performance on the pitch, you'd have thought, they can't be spending that much money. The reality is they are overspending. So if Everton are overspending, a lot of clubs are probably worried about it.
But I guess if I'm an Everton fan or a Forest fan, maybe what I would want is rather than going stop fining us, stop giving us points deductions, I'd be like, can you just start properly giving people points deductions where they should have it? Do you know what I mean? If everyone was getting punished properly, and part of the reason with the Man City thing, the reason they haven't been charged yet is because there's 117 things they're going to be charged for. I've heard on good authority there's only 3 people within the Premier League offices who actually work on these cases. So they're just completely overwhelmed by red tape in trying to close these City things down. Whereas with
Forest, a bunch of really good lawyers.
But against the best lawyers in the world. Exactly. They got one
lawyer every charge.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, with Forest and Everton, it's fairly simple stuff, so they could charge them quite quickly. I just think it works better if you go, you know what, rather than changing the rules, just enforce the rules properly, and then you won't be complete.
Do you know what it is, though, mate? When you're down the bottom, a points deduction means a hell of a lot more.
It's horrible.
And that's probably, their feet are close to the fire.
They're close to the fire, but Brian, they haven't been burnt.
But let's be honest, if they'd been given their full points deduction that there was later changed, they could have gone down this season.
They could have done, but they haven't. And I think if you were to talk to a Luton fan or a Sheffield United fan or a Burnley fan, they'd be looking at what's happening with Everton and Forest. They'd be going, yeah, okay, they got points deductions, but guess what? They've also got players on a lot of money. They've also got players that are so much better than ours that even when they got the points deductions, we couldn't compete.
You possibly just named the 3 sides that didn't vote out of that 70.
Brighton will be one of them because this is the thing. Clubs aren't working on a profit. That's really not the point of a football set, Brighton. But Brighton are, so they're one of the ones who are doing a madness.
It's a bit conspiracy theorist, but had it not been for the fact that some would imagine they might want to get this done before the Man City case is due to be, sorted out, had it not been for that, you wouldn't pick this season as the season to enforce it at the end of. You'd pick a season where there hadn't been points deductions, because now, no matter what, if you change the rules, but you still have Nottingham Forest and Everton on the points deduction, shit hits the fan.
As far as I understand it's going into next year rather than being enforced for this year. So I don't think that would necessarily be an issue. Like the points deductions would still stand.
But still, if you don't get out of the Championship next season, if you're at Everton, you go down as a result of it, you don't get out of the Championship next season, then you go, the reason we're actually down here wasn't, all right, the performances weren't good, but it wasn't wholly on the performances, it was on the point deduction. By the way, they don't even have that system up there no more. You're gonna feel begrudged about it.
I think there's that thing that, and obviously you guys always talk about it, but there is that thing of protecting the top 6, the top clubs, and keeping it as is. They can throw their weight around, throw money around, and anything can happen, anything can go their way. I think they do it in the NBA. They have the same salary cap in the NBA, and Golden State Warriors was way over. They had all these players.
I guarantee there'll be stipulations.
So there's going to be so now you could only imagine what City will be able to do when it's legal cheating, they can legally break the rules.
What they'll do is so right now, Newcastle have to justify everything based on what the club is bringing in.
Yeah.
We know for a fact, all right, we've just signed a new Adidas deal and we've got new sponsors, but realistically, that still pales in comparison to what the leaps that were able to be made by City when they first took over the club. We can't do all of that. So I think that there'll still be some sort of system in place where they go, yeah, but you still can't spend too much more than what your club is bringing in, yada, yada. So I still don't see a world in which all of a sudden the gloves are off for Newcastle. We can just do
not
what we
for
want.
you, I think that
the door is closed because the big six need to be maintained.
I think that there's more of that. And even for Man United, right now, Man United, when people are leaving us out of the FFP conversation, when we need to be right in there. If you see Man United's last couple signings have been loans. And that should give you a sign of the times or a sign of the market to say, hey, something's not right over there, because they should be able to go out and buy any, like...
Well, your club's in debt, massive debt.
Yeah, that's...
More debt than most clubs. And I don't understand how that isn't even taken into account for anything you do.
Hence, we have this salary tax.
Yeah.
Hence, we have this issue saying, well, the top clubs must stay where they are. They must stay there. So address this. So now, which is what they're doing. They're saying, hey, listen, we need to give these guys a fighting chance, because if it carries on, it was probably the lowest money you spent last summer on FFP because everyone was getting into trouble.
Well, the January transfer window was a write-off.
It scared people. Yeah. United scared a lot of clubs. So, and then you still want to make this a attractive brand. The Premier League still needs to be an attractive brand. So we have to spend the most money and bring players in. I was wondering what you were going to say about Europe, though, because in Europe, ain't there different laws? There's Europa.
Yeah, so if this rule gets implemented, obviously there will be free spending because everyone can spend as much as they want, and the clubs up and down the country will do that. But when you go into European competitions, there are European regulations. We're actually, Chelsea, we're potentially going to be full foul of this, because if we go into Europe next year and there are the same rules as in Europe that there are this year, we're going to be way above the limit in terms of what we could spend. So we're going to need to sell even more players than we would have otherwise had to, because the regulations in the UK are different from the regulations in Europe. But this is the thing, like what I'm finding really difficult as a football fan, I'm just saying, like, let's forget everything else. I'm finding it really difficult to just keep track of this. Like, it's very difficult when we're talking about accountancy topics, we're talking about businesses, and then we're just talking about our football clubs. We just ultimately want to watch football and we want to know what's going to happen. We don't want to go, oh, there may be a points deduction. We may have to spend 15 extra million. It's like, make the rules really consistent so we're fully aware of it, and make it consistent across the board. Make it a FIFA ruling. So that
Do you know why they can't?
Chelsea ruined it.
No, but I think
Chelsea ruined
because
it.
You can't explicitly say, how do we make rules that work for the top, the bottom, but also stop anyone breaking into the top? That's why they fucked it, because it is corrupt, but they can't show that level of corruption. Yeah. So they're trying different rules. They're like, oh, this doesn't work because this is fucking up these clubs at the bottom. Yeah. Oh, this doesn't work because then everyone can spend what they want. Yeah. How do we target clubs? And they can't be seen to do that, but that's what they want to do.
I'm telling you right now, if you go back, you could blame this on Roman Abramovich. There's enough because you think about it, that Chelsea was not relevant until Roman Abramovich's millions. It's true. It's true. They came in and they started buying all these players, and Real Madrid weren't the place to go because Chelsea came in, and then after, everyone wants a billionaire takeover. And since then, I'm telling you can always trace it back to Roman.
We were playing European football before.
Okay. And how was he doing?
We were in European championships.
In Europe.
Are you not telling me there's a...
You know what isn't fair, though?
Yeah.
What isn't fair is the fact
love that he came
that Newcastle right now have barely really got going in our overhaul revolution. Yeah. That compared to what people thought, we thought we were the next Man City. I was carried away. But equally, if we're looking at real top players that we brought in, you could argue Isak and Bruno, who really now look like top players. But even when we brought them in, who'd heard of them? Really, you'd heard of their names. You hadn't seen much. Anthony Gordon was a young kid. It's not like we went and bought anyone who was proven. They were just good prospects. And even now, we're already having to sell one or two of those. Yeah. Because not because we need the money. It's because of the rules. That, for me, I'm like, as a fan, genuinely, lads, and I'm hearing it from all the Newcastle fans, they're all so disheartened because it's like, well, what's the point then? Because if you sell your best players when we've not even had them for any meaningful length of time, we've not achieved anything, we've not really gone into the Champions League, we never made a difference, we haven't got silverware. Well, what's the fucking point then?
From someone who hasn't got a horse in the race there. And obviously, yeah, all right, I've had the experience of having my club go through what I'm sure you'd love your club to go through. I think the Newcastle situation's a piss take, man.
Yeah,
like, even me, I want to see it. Listen, I hate what Man City's become now, but I'll tell you what, when they first got that money and Robinho was rocking up there, I was like, this is cool as a neutral, innit?
I mean, arguably out of every club in the entire Premier League, Newcastle would be the biggest winners if this rule change came.
But do you know what? Do you know what makes me think here? You see them 17 votes we're talking about. No way is that 17 had Nottingham Forest and Everton not been slapped with the points deductions. Then I think you're looking at 12 votes or something like that. Whereas that's the thing that's made other teams down there who, because I used the analogy, right? I said it's like the debate in boxing, and not that this is a strong debate or highly contested, but should all boxers just be allowed to juice when you're getting boxers left, right, and centre being popped for performance enhancers, right? But the difference is, and I think you were going to make this point, the difference is that all boxers, if they wanted to, can do that, right? Not all clubs can spend that money if they want to. So now you're looking at the clubs lower down in the league, and that's why they're getting them votes in favour of this, because they're thinking, God,
well, maybe there's a balance to be had then. But right now, it's clearly not balanced. When a club like Newcastle, who've got the richest owners in the world, are having to sell 2 of 3 good fucking footballers we've got, not because we need the money, because we have to.
So first of all, there's one thing I want to say about this luxury tax thing that we haven't discussed yet, which is that one of the propositions is that when a club gets fined, so say you bought a £100 million player and got fined 15, that 15 million would get redistributed around the other clubs.
I thought that would happen.
Now listen to me.
Yeah.
I think that can be completely disregarded straight away, because we've already got wealth distribution and a big problem with it in the Premier League already. There is so much TV money in the Premier League. We spend 2 billion more than any other league on wages. And how's that working? It's not, because it's unfair. The point that you make, Joey, about, could you just let every boxer juice? It's like, well, yeah, you could if it was just middleweights against middleweights. The problem with the Premier League is middleweights fight heavyweights every single weekend, and you're getting knocked out already, mate. So why do you want to let them juice more?
We're looking at 4 in a row for Man City, potentially. Like, how's it working exactly?
So here's where I'm going to argue about the Newcastle thing.
And now, a word from our sponsors. I love football, I love betting on football, and I love it when that is easy, and that is at its easiest on StakeMate. And the beauty of StakeMate is they are now our partners on the kickoff, and they are willing to give you a free £5 bet with no deposit. All you've got to do is click the link in the description below, download the app, sign up, and use our promo code TKO5. Each week, I'm going to be putting on an acca with StakeMate. You can have a go at yourself. As I said, it's really easy. I've gone this week for Chelsea to beat Everton. Chelsea often inconsistent, so last result wasn't good. Maybe they'll win this one. It's Everton. They're struggling right now. Newcastle at home to Spurs. I'm picking Newcastle. We've got a decent record lately at home to Spurs. Bournemouth against Man United. I'm going for Bournemouth just because Man United, they're terrible, aren't they? I mean, I am a bit biased, but and Wolves away win against Forest, who are also struggling right now. I'm going to put a tenner on that, and the return could be as much as 314 quid if it comes off. Now, what I love most about this app is they've got a feature called Squads, where you and your mates can literally create a group within the app. You can message each other on the app, send each other bets. If you like one of your mates' bets, you can jump on it as well. It's so easy to use. Rather than having to screenshot it, send the bet through your WhatsApp or whatever, it just simplifies everything and means that as mates, you can bet together. So big love to StakeMate for sponsoring the kickoff, and if you love our content, you've got to support StakeMate, who support us. Remember, the link's in the description below. Use TKO5 to get your free £5 bet, and you can set up your own group with your mates and share your bets today. Remember, StakeMate is a betting app. You've got to be in the UK, you've got to be 18 or older, and always gamble responsibly. But for now, enjoy the video.
KG's just sat here and gone, yeah, it all went wrong when Abramovich started spending. And I agree with that. That's when it went wrong. Then Man City made it go worse. But then if we're going to say, so we should just let Newcastle spend, it's like saying, yeah, God, it was bad when the house set fire, then the fucking neighbour's house went on fire. Should we set a few more houses on fire?
Do you not think that there's a reasonable middle ground then? Because right now, I think most people would say what Newcastle are going through isn't fair when we've literally had these great players 2 minutes and we're already having to offload them before they've even come close to their full potential. And we haven't even replaced the Steve Bruce players yet, and we're already at that point.
So then there's two.
Can we not find a middle ground?
Well, I think there's two. There's a middle ground ground, but then I think you have to think about this like theory of thought that takes you to that middle ground. You either say to yourself, well, because of these things that went wrong historically, we kind of have to let things go a little bit wrong with Newcastle, i.e. because people spent so insanely before, we have to let Newcastle spend a bit insanely. I don't agree with that. I think what you should be doing is actually punishing the clubs who did stuff before. I think City's title should go. I think they should be stripped. I genuinely do. And I think I think moving forward, I don't think we should let it happen again. I look at what you're trying to do, Newcastle, with the Saudi investment fund, and it must be a dream for your fans. It must be a dream. It was, and it didn't work, right? But then I look at another club in the Premier League, in Aston Villa, and they're ahead of you. And they're going to compete in Europe next season.
Are they going to reach their full potential while the gap is what it is?
But they've got to sell players this summer.
But
they're better equipped to sell players this summer. You've got to sell one of your superstars this summer. Isaac or Bruno Guimaraes are going to go. And what's going to happen when they go? You're going to be in trouble because exactly like you said. Let me just think, because you've got Steve Bruce players. Because you've done it so quickly. 1 minute, you were fucking fighting relegation with Steve Bruce, and Joe Willock's purple streak in front of goal saved you from getting relegated. Within 2 years, you're trying to compete with fucking PSG. My point I'm trying to make is, when Aston Villa have to sell a player this summer, they might sell Douglas Luiz to us. Guess what? They're going to be fine because they've done it over years. I look at the two methods. Why are Villa where they are? Because they got Monchi, who's a really good sporting director, and he started spending 40 million here, 50 million there. They've spent a bit of money on players like Moussa Diaby, but it's really been funded by an academy success in Jack Grealish being sold for good money, good management, redistributed amongst a few players, and it goes well.
Some of it.
Right. But that's what I think should be allowed to happen. But I think if I want to see like mid-table clubs come up and compete with the big boys, as Villa have done, by the way. They've beaten us this season. They gave Man City a fucking good hiding earlier this season. I look at that and I'm going, that should be what's allowed, not just allowed, but encouraged to happen. I look at Newcastle.
It's not going to happen though. But you know why? Because the big six have got a stranglehold there. And because all of the wealth in sponsorships already automatically goes to them. Yes, you might have a plucky Aston Villa rear their head up there for one season. Can they continue? Newcastle couldn't. Part of the problem is that infrastructure is set in stone. No one can penetrate it unless, historically, throughout the Premier League, this isn't an opinion, it's a fact. It takes a new owner to come into a Blackburn, even Leicester had a new owner, Chelsea, Man City. You need a new owner to get there. And one of the things that you're against, by the sounds of it, is in terms of business-wise, is people being able to buy a business and invest in it. I do think a lot of people... Not
just invest in it, but invest in it in a way that's uncontrollable, that completely destabilises the market. Yes, I am against that.
Yeah, but I think that what I've said is, in a happy middle ground, I think it's a fair thing to expect for a businessman to buy a business and go, all right, you can't just blow away all the competition. We need to have a fair middle ground of maybe wage caps, amount of money we can spend in the transfer market each. What is the maximum a team can spend each summer?
I like that.
Things like that, where the top team is held back based on what its competitors. Yes. So if we say to Man City, you can only spend as much as Arsenal or Liverpool, for example. Yeah. You can't spend more than them. You can't outspend them consistently because we need to have some sort of competition here. I think that would be fair. But we need to also be allowed businessmen to buy a club and invest in their own company.
I agree, but within a set of limits. And let's be honest with ourselves. This is the first season where we've seen any kind of punishments. This is the first season where there's been any kind of recriminations for spending wrong. And let's look at what's actually happening this season. You've got Villa and Spurs, right? Now, there are Spurs fans who'll tell you they hate the way their clubs run, but they've done some shrewd business in the market last couple of seasons. They've got a really good manager who's punching above his way. As you could argue Emery's doing at Villa. Where are they? They're 4th and 5th in the league.
I disagree with this example, though, because you've just said, rightly so, this is the first season it's happened. The data hasn't come yet. The data is actually January, where no one spent any money. Right. So that tells you that based on what's happened, everyone shit themselves. So what that tells me is the rules are too strict and too scary.
But I just wanted to point to two more examples where you've got big billionaire owners spending like fucking lunatics in your club and your club. Where are you?
No, but then I was going to say the quality for this is the homegrown players, because now everyone's talking about academy and building players.
But not for your club, which is the worst thing.
We have to sell them. Build and sell. What are you?
Who are your two players that you're trying to sell? Greenwood and McTominay. If you look at Chelsea, who are they selling? Or we've Chelsea.
That's the worst thing as part of this.
I don't want my club bringing players up. Like if I was Chelsea, seeing Livramento, seeing Declan Rice, seeing all these. I don't want them playing for other clubs. That's insane.
we've done all that. We're still in trouble. We're still in trouble. So when you're looking at that way of doing things,
being encouraged to do it so that you can keep spending on other.
And we have absolutely shipped out the most young talent in Europe. And no club's done what Chelsea have done in terms of the amount of players. Like, you see it all the time on social media, the teams that you could build of players that Chelsea have sold. We've done all that and we're still in trouble. Do you know what I mean? Like,
but I don't think that's not because of the rule. Example.
That's not because of the rules.
The owners, isn't it?
It's because your owner's a fucking basket case. It's because when you sell Conor Gallagher and you need some legs in midfield, he's probably going to buy the hardest geezer. Like that's where your club is right now. I think you and I are agreeing, Brian. We're not disagreeing. What I'm saying is, I don't think the answer to the rules not working should be get rid of the rules. I think keep working on the rules until you get the rules right, and that's what you're saying as well. Yeah, you're saying,
but I think that there's two extremes that we've seen. We've seen the extreme of this season where everyone shit themselves, no one wants to spend any money. Yeah. And literally 12 months before, it was the biggest spending summer we've ever seen.
It was the Wild West.
So what we need is a middle ground where Newcastle can allow some slack to invest in their club and to stabilise in some way of like, all right, we're one of the richest clubs in the world, but we can't just go and buy the league, but we can also be competitive.
But can I just quickly come back on that? I think part of the problem, Brian, is they've done it too quick. I think that's part of what your club's done wrong. I think throwing loads of money at Isak, who's unbelievable, by the way, and players like Tonali, which they got wrong, that's like 60, 70, 80 million pound signings. Mm-hmm. Would it not have been wiser for them to buy some 20, 30 million pound signings just to replace those players who are, the Steve Bruce players, the Dan Burns of this world? Like, would it not have made sense for you to just build a little bit slower? And it's not part of the problem. Part of the problem is that you've just done it a bit too quick. The rules have come in when you didn't expect them, and now you're kind of hamstrung.
I'd like to say for the record, none of this had anything to do with Dan Ashworth. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean,
just stand
if you look at the value that we've created in that, right? If you actually look at the players that we've signed and the value we've put into the club,
who can you sell?
So if we look at Anthony Gordon and if we look at most of the players we've signed for the future, Bruno, Gordon, and Isak, they're all going to increase in value.
Yes.
We also were in a situation where when Eddie Howe took over, we were destined for relegation. So we had no choice but to throw a bit of money into this and go, we need to stop the rot here. Otherwise, there will be no...
I agree. But then you and I sit here every week, you get an injury, and when one of your superstar £80 million players, and I'm not saying they were bought for £80 million, I'm saying they're rated at that now, and I think they correctly are so, as soon as they get injured, you get some championship chugger coming in and replacing them. And that's what I mean.
I think part of the spending, though, was a misunderstanding from our board into how seriously these rules were going to be implemented. And
you thought you could keep doing it.
And I feel like, as we've seen, the rules have kept continuously changing and being enforced in a different way, which is why we're sat here saying, what are the fucking rules? What are we... Like, if I said to you right now, in a 12-month period, they're going to be a whole new set of financial rules, who would be surprised?
No. And I think what we're agreeing on is they need to make a sensible set of rules that do work, that stop people going mental, and then just stick to them.
Part of the reason why they won't do that is because in order to let off some of those big six sides, you're going to have to let...
No, City.
Yeah. No,
we're viable. It's money that we get bring in.
I think you're a billion in debt.
No, but we're a billion in debt. No, but we the money that we bring in us is not fake sponsorship. The turnover is real. What Man United are able to do is
I agree.
Fair.
I agree.
But what City have done is pumped up. They said there's sponsors that don't exist. They said that they say that there's money or there's fans that are not there.
There's also the question of like, how are you paying Erling Haaland's real transfer fee? Right.
There you go.
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and I get that. But the problem is in order to let off some of the big six, including Man City, clearly, you also are going to have to let Newcastle off the leash a little bit as well. And that's where they've tried to specifically target Newcastle by saying owners who own one company can't then use that company to sponsor another company. Historically, that's been happening. For Everton did it. Loads of clubs. Leicester did it. King Power Stadium. Yeah. That's been something that's happened for decades. Yeah. Mike Ashley was allowed to do it at Sports Direct Arena, even though he was paying, £1,000 a year for all of the signs. It's always been fine, but now they started trying to target Newcastle.
Just it was okay before doesn't mean it should be okay play moving forward.
Exactly.
This is what I'm saying, though. Like, just because these people have done this in the past, you can't let them continue to do it.
The point I'm making is a lot of these were specifically brought in to target Newcastle because let's not kid ourselves.
And Everton.
No, come on, let's be real. A month after we were bought, in that 6-month period, the amount of rule changes that came in were clearly directed at stopping us from becoming Man City. I don't mind it, I understand it, but the problem is it also fucks other teams as well. Yeah. And that's why they're having to change them, in my opinion.
You were going to say something, yeah?
So what you're saying then, if you get your way, you're going to have wage caps, regulation, clubs being regulated at every level.
No.
You're such a fun
But what do you want?
Jacob. If you get your way,
what do you want?
If he gets his way,
you just said Wenger.
It's the Wenger.
No, don't let the fun sponge get his way.
It's the Wenger special.
But then if that comes in, we're not going to have the Premier League. Saudi will come in and they'll pay the most money. All the talent will go to Saudi and then we'll lose it.
Yeah, exactly. But first of all, let's take the Saudi thing out of the conversation. So I've seen Fabinho and everyone fucking else crying about how much they want to come home. I've seen Jordan Henderson end up in Amsterdam because he's so keen to relax after a bit of time in Saudi.
Well, he's definitely relaxing. He got beat 6-0 the other day.
Yeah.
At least he fixed the LGBT problem in Saudi, bro. He fixed it.
What a guy. I tell you what.
Job done.
Job done, mate.
All in a day's work for Jordan Henderson. It took him 6 months.
Someone put a cape on the man.
Put a pride flag on. There's actually going to be a pride march in Saudi this summer. I'm buzzing, mate.
I'm pretty with the pride cape on.
Yeah.
Just what literally saying that result.
Officiating gay marriages in Saudi. He's the man.
Ajax losing, was it 6-0 against Feyenoord?
Oh, they hate.
You know Graham Potter's going there.
Nah, he turned it down.
Oh, was he turned it down?
Turned it down, yeah.
But sorry I know you were trying to say that I'm the wage cap geezer. I'm not necessarily trying to say what I don't want. I want a competitive league.
You don't want the Wild West?
I don't want the Wild West because I think what could have happened very quickly is if there wasn't any rules at all, like the Saudi private investment fund could have gone to Newcastle, right, okay, we've got more money than City. How do we make you the best team in the world? We just spend more than City. There's a 95% correlation between wage spend and positioning in the league. Usually the richest club is the top club in the league. You were the richest club.
So breaking news. Everton have been given a 2-point deduction in breach of Premier League rules, so they are now only 2 points above the relegations.
With a game in hand. But then what Luton fans and what Sheffield United fans and other fans would say, they go, yeah, they're only 2 points above it with much better players than ours because they spent the money. They got Onana who's going to get $100,000 a week.
So ironically, it still benefits them breaking the rules.
That's what they'll argue. I just want to finish my point. I'm not saying that I want to stop all the fun, stop all the spending. Every January has to be a dry fucking transfer deadline day where no reporter gets slapped with a dildo because there's no deadline move. But that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is what wouldn't have been a solution to Premier League's financial problems is if Newcastle's owners had come into Newcastle, just spent more money than City and just done what City have done. We've seen City try their hardest and very nearly, if it wasn't for Jurgen Klopp, turn the Premier League into the Bundesliga in terms of City winning every Premier League. And it's only going to be by a fraction if either Arsenal or Liverpool stop them doing it this year. We wouldn't be in a better position if in 5 years' time Newcastle were doing the same thing.
Why don't you? I just don't know why you wouldn't want clubs to invest in their own infrastructure and to allow them to progress and become a Big Six. So why do we not have a Big Ten? Why can we not have clubs free spending and progressing themselves and investing in their own infrastructure? Why can't Brighton go and take all the money that they've made from player sales, but then go and push on and really compete against the top clubs?
Because there's only one Saudi Arabia. There's only one Saudi Arabia.
Well, Saudi Arabia, get in the back.
Because to use Joey's example of the doping, it's like going, you know what, we could all dope and then we'd be competitive. But one of the fighters has got a fucking laboratory full of drugs and the rest of them have got a cupboard.
Yeah.
This is the problem.
The other one's on spend.
I think the reality is there's only the truth is there are 2 rich clubs in the Premier League and then there's a lot of
But you're even richer than City.
Yeah, we're looking down upon them. We're getting a nosebleed. We're like so high above them, right? It's bad.
The horse is bolted though. Like
that's not a reason to let all the other horses bolt.
But it's gone. You're never going to be able to regulate it.
In a scenario where Man City are about to potentially clinch their 4th league title in a row and could even do back-to-back trebles.
Jesus.
When Josh says the horse is bolted, I understand it because it is true. But what we need to do is pull that horse back and then set new rules in place. But if you're not going to punish Man City, you're by giving all the regulations now, my fucking Jamaican accent came out. Regulation. I don't know what happened. But
he should have got your job, but you had to pay.
You should have just rang.
There'd have been a lot of questions. Food Geordie cancelled for a second time.
Cancel it again.
Make it three. So we need to punish City, pull them back, and then put in some reasonable rules. But right now, the rules are massive, and what happens is City are still getting away with it, so it really doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm agreeing with you. And by the way, it's fucking unbelievable that it's a Newcastle fan being the most reasonable one on the table. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
He's not being reasonable.
Let's wait till he gets to the money. He's not
being reasonable. He knows that.
I've just called for Jose Mourinho against the Newcastle job because we've got no chance of silverware in my head now because the rules are so strict. And I'm thinking, if we sell Isak or Bruno, we can forget anything.
Oh, yeah.
We can forget it.
But then, so just to stick with the example I gave, what if you do a Villa? What if you do sell Isak or Bruno, and say you get 90 million quid for Bruno, say you buy 3 £30 million players, who, I think that's roughly what you spent on Bruno?
35, yeah.
Yeah. So and then in 3 years' time, you've got 270 million pounds worth of profit if you want it. But and rather than one player, you've got 3 players.
But it's going to be hard without that.
But then you've got to rely on a little bit of luck, because when you look more often than not, when decent money is spent, it doesn't guarantee that.
Yeah, of course.
You talk about 100 million as if 100 million is a great deal of money in today's market. Eric Ten Hag took a team that were in the top 6, spent 400 million on them. Do you know where they are now? 6.
Why don't you ever talk about Chelsea? They're here.
No.
They're here. They spent $1 billion.
Sorry.
You never mentioned this guy.
Chelsea are a great example of.
Thank you. $1 billion, please.
But the point is.
But they're run by idiots. That's the point. The point is not just luck. They're fucking morons. We spoke about Bowley. We spoke about Ten Hag's. He's catching straight. Supported by a load of idiots too, haven't we? Brian, the point I'm trying to make, we look at Villa, we look at Monchi, we look at a smart technical director. I'm just saying what we don't want is spread betting. We're not saying that we want every transfer to be a gamble and you have to get lucky. We're saying that what we want is we want smart tacticians who are good in the market to bring good talent to the Premier League, reinvest money properly, and get it that way.
Do you not think, though, if we're talking about what's likely to happen, not the ideal situation, a cap on how much teams can spend, in the Premier League's eyes as a whole, they're going to think we're giving the advantage to other leagues then.
In relation to what, though? Is it a cap on, is it just a flat cap? As in, can you only spend £250 million a summer? Is it based on what income you bring in? Because that's basically that's the same thing that it is now. So what is the cap in relation to?
Whatever can make it difficult for City is what I say. If they get into a room and say, let's make it hard for them to win back-to-back treble. Because let's be real, guys. Even everyone knows it around the table. This team can't be stopped. I'm shocked that you lot have managed to build something together and compete. But we're all dealing with this. Liverpool, they can't stand the sight of City because why? They're just better. And then when it gets bad, if they have any issues, they can throw money at it. It's only, I would say this season, which has been a bit kind of refreshing, is seeing them having to, a couple youngsters, bringing a Rico Lewis, the Bobs, and
KG, what we have to talk about as well is it's not just the spending on transfers. The reason they've got Oscar Bobs and Lewis coming through is because the amount of money they can spend on academies. It's because the amount of money they can throw at academy leaders. It's the amount of money they can throw at Pep Guardiola. It's not just the fact that everything on the pitch is the best in the world. Talk to Man City fans about the training and development centre they opened in Manchester. It's better than Manchester United now.
Way better.
There's a reason that Oscar Bobs are playing for City and not United. Years ago, he'd be a Man United player.
They also had so much value embedded into the squad that it meant that later on they could go, we'll get rid of Mahrez and Gundogan because we're going to cash it like they do with Sterling. They had so much, like Chelsea did back in the day. Yeah. They were hoarding players.
I interrupt you, sorry, but I think it's really important that we don't just look at the 11 players on the pitch. You have to look at the whole operations. It's not just the fucking training ground they own. They own other clubs. They've got players at other clubs who are going to come to them in the
9 in the City group.
Didn't the City group lose $1.2 billion in the last year or something?
Yeah.
Was that
sounds about right.
Yeah, I think that was in the group chat the other day, and I'm thinking that shouldn't be all right.
But this is what I'm saying when we say the horse has bolted. You have to do something. We can't lie.
Do you know why they don't want to do it though? Is because if we were to punish Man City properly, it would destroy the club. really, because what they've done is so outrageous that pulling them back and like if Everton are getting that level of points deduction for the minor infringements for what was it, 30 million or whatever, I can't remember, they're in real danger here of getting relegated based on very little. If we were to punish City fairly, I mean, you're talking about taking away titles, you're talking about rewriting history, you're talking a lot.
What's wrong with that? So I missed the bad bit.
I understand that, but I just don't know if the Premier League would want to compromise. It's a bit like
I'm not saying we were wrong.
It's the story.
We mismanaged.
Yeah, you challenge the validity of the Premier League entirely by saying all of these titles, by the way, guys, were all cheaters, bullshit, and we didn't do anything about it at the time. I can't imagine the Premier League, the runners of the Premier League, Richard Masters and them going, by the way, this is all just a fucking load of shite. I don't think that for the credibility of the league, they'll own up to that.
Integrity.
I think in terms of credibility and integrity, I think you give yourselves more by punishing cheaters.
I agree with you, but you know how
it won't happen. I'm with you. I'm with you.
No one wants that to say, that happened on my watch. Yeah, that happened on my... Because you know what happens? You get sacked for that, so you're not going to admit that. Accountability, my us.
And then I think even other European clubs, because I think it becomes more of it's happened to them, but then you can talk about relegated clubs or other European sides that have been knocked out of Europe off the back of these cheaters.
It's the same reason La Liga are doing everything they can to keep Barcelona alive right now, and why Spotify's plastered all over that fucking Nou Camp. Like, it's like loads of clubs are doing this on the continent.